The moon is our constant companion on our yearly journey around the sun on its own orbit around us. One period around its orbit is what we call a month. But what is a month really? In very early times, the Egyptians timed the shape of the moon. Their month began at new moon, when the moon could no longer be seen. This we know today as the synodic month. It is slightly longer than it takes the moon to complete its orbit around us. But this method of tracking time proved to be difficult because ancient observers could never be sure that all of the moon had in fact disappeared. Poor visibility at times added to the problem. The sidereal month is slightly shorter. It is between 27 and 28 days long, and as soon as the ancient Egyptians learned to use the stars as their markers to track the moon, keeping accurate time became much easier. No longer needed astronomer priests to pin down an invisible moon to mark a new month. Now they simply had to count down the days as shown in this time lapse, where each move of the moon is one day. The moon rises in the east and sets in the west due to our daily spin around ourselves on Earth. But each day it advances eastward against the fixed stars on its own orbit. For example, Taurus, as shown in this time lapse. From these early beginnings, using a few groups of stars as time markers, the ancient Egyptians developed a sophisticated star clock by dividing the sky into 36 slices, each identified with a unique star or star pattern. This clock is known as the Decan map, and it is what eventually gave us the hours of our day. And so we see that the length of the ancient Egyptian month depended on how they tracked the moon. At first they tracked its shape, but then advanced and tracked its position using the stars as a map. Now let's follow the moon on its one-year journey as it follows our Earth on its orbit around the sun. How many days does it take for the moon to return to its spot on the star map? We begin this time lapse with the sun in Leo and the moon in Taurus. This is our starting alignment. And as the days go by, the weeks and months, the moon visits each house of the zodiac, beginning with Taurus to Gemini, Cancer, Leo, Virgo, Libra, and so on, until it returns to Taurus after 355 days and a few hours more, just about 356 days for an observer in the same spot on Earth, counting all this time. This is a sidereal lunar year, and it seems it is what inspired the side slope of the Great Pyramid. The ancient Egyptians of the 4th dynasty had a compelling reason to use the moon to time the first day of their year, the rising of the star Sirius, the celestial symbol of Horus, which signaled to them that the annual life-renewing flood of the Nile was imminent. What compelled them to change their keeping of time? This we must now explore, because Hemi Uno is telling us with his design that the Great Pyramid was to encode a resurrection calendar. Khufu's 2nd dynasty ancestors, in a case of unintended consequences 200 years later, set up the 4th dynasty for a doomsday scenario. New Year's Day would fall on the day Horus died on the horizon, the cosmic setting of Sirius. This would have been an incredibly bad omen. Imagine our anxiety over the Mayan calendar coming to its end in 2012, only much worse to the deeply religious ancient Egyptians. This day was to come within 1 or 2 generations of Khufu. Either his grandson Menkaure or even his sons Khafre or Jedefre would have been alive when it came. How could this happen? The Egyptian state-ordained calendar had 12 months, each 30 days long. It began with Thoth 1, New Year's Day. It ended with the 5 days dedicated to Osiris, Isis, Seth, Nephthys, and Horus. This man-made calendar was exactly 365 days long. The Sothic year was and is a natural cycle, 365 and a quarter days long. It is the time in days for Earth to complete its orbit based on a star marker in the sky, the star Sirius, as seen from Earth. And herein lay the problem, the quarter-day difference between the natural year and the man-made year. Our own calendar had to be adjusted 4 centuries ago to correct just such a mistake. This tiny difference caused a slow drift of New Year's Day away from Sirius risings, 1 day each 4 years. It means when the calendar said it was New Year's, Sirius was not yet visible. This effect had long been noticed by Imhotep, and he encoded this drift in the walls around the step pyramid of Djoser. But it was to get much worse for Khufu and his heirs. The backwards drift of New Year's Day was approaching the time when Sirius cosmically set in the west, the dying of Horus, 70 days before its rising. Even before this ultimate doomsday, cosmic settings of Sirius were about to fall on the 5 holy days of the civic calendar, probably during the time of Khufu. This doomsday looming over Khufu's head may explain the urgency to change not only the keeping of time, but also the more intense worship of a god heretofore on the sidelines and in the shadow of Ra, Osiris, and Horus, and that god was Khnum.